In case you don't know, SolarBalls is a plant-bar channel that produces plant-bar content, which yeah, they break a lot of plant-bar rules, but the content's still good in my opinion. However, there are some problems I do want to address about the show. I've watched SolarBalls for a few years at this point, and I know some issues with the channel, but before we begin criticizing, I do want to mention 3 things. 1. Please subscribe. I want to hit 20,000 subscribers. If you want, become a member for the channel. 2. When I say criticism of SolarBalls, I don't mean the fact that they break plant bar rules or how they ruin the plant bar community. I'm talking about the actual show itself. And 3. I understand that it's a team working super hard on the show, but it doesn't mean they're immune to constructive criticism. I've seen videos of people criticizing other indie animation shows, like the mentioned Digital Circus, Lackadaisy, and Catching Up. Shows created by small companies and teams, which by the way, these 3 shows are great, but I can understand they have flaws. Same with SolarBalls. So with that all out of the way, let's start with the criticizing. First, I want to talk about some of the waste potential that some of the episodes have. For example, Sharon and Pluto's presence in the Moon Revolution Part 4. Now, if you will look at a previous episode, where does Pluto really come from, at the end of the episode, you can see how Sharon is warning Pluto of the Moon Revolution. Now, based on this, you might think that Pluto and Sharon are going to get involved in the war, and are going to have a big impact on the revolution. And yes, they do. But in the most underwhelming way possible, as they only appear in the final episode in the last quarter doing a corny speech, which by the way doesn't convince Ganymede and Europa, unsurprisingly, but they play along anyway because everyone else agrees, which ends the Moon Revolution. However, I feel like there's a lot of waste potential, and I feel like it built up to some really childlike solution. I mean, I feel like they could have done at least a little more. Another issue is how inconsistent continuity is, not just with the plot themselves, but also the way characters act, as sometimes they might go against their characters. One prime example is Luna. At the end of the Moon Revolution, Luna and Earth are pretty much best friends, especially after all the stuff they've been through. They understand each other, and it's pretty evident that they have a great relationship, and this friendship does continue throughout the Planet X arc. However, in the episode Jupiter is Back Part 2, we clearly see Earth in a bad state similar to the Earth Alone arc because of Theia. Now, while playing cards with Luna, Mars, Mercury, and Venus, we see Earth constantly asking questions about how Mars feels about Jupiter. Now, for Mars and Mercury, it makes sense that they're upset as he's talking about pretty sensitive information. Because of that, they leave, which also results in Venus leaving. However, Luna gets pretty mad at Earth and decides to leave as well because he ruined his chance of playing solar cards with the rocky planets, which is not how Luna should be acting. You would expect Luna to understand how the Earth feels, or at least have some sympathy, but no, he's just pretty selfish because he's too focused on him not being able to actually play with the rocky planets. The excuse of, oh, Luna wanted to play with the rocky planets, he's always wanted to do that, and Earth ruined it, should not be a valid excuse of acting like this to the Earth, especially with the state he's in. And if that wasn't enough, a few episodes later, and Earth is leaving Part 1, Mars asks where Earth is, and if he went to find Jupiter, asked by Theia, and Luna says this.
Nah, the Earth wouldn't be that crazy. Leaving his orbit would put every Earthling at risk.
Which also goes against his character because he literally saw the Earth heading to the Sun in the Moon Revolution arc. After that experience, Luna should be fully aware of what the Earth is willing to do in an unstable state, even with the billions of creatures on this planet that could be risk freezing. This goes against his character again and is nearly character assassination. Okay, maybe a little too extreme, but you get my point. Another example about continuity being an issue is where Planet X is actually located, which I'm not going to talk about as much as it's not as serious as the last one, but it's still something I want to talk about. Now, based on episodes like The Search of Planet X Part 3, The Big Bang Part 3, and X Returns Part 1, we can see that Planet X was super far away from the solar system, way past the Kuiper Belt. However, in the episode The Disruption in the Kuiper Belt, we see that Planet X is literally inside the Kuiper Belt watching dwarf planets, which, when looking at these other 3 episodes, doesn't make sense as he is supposed to be far past the Kuiper Belt. Why would Planet X randomly be hiding in the Kuiper Belt, only for him to go all the way back to where he's supposed to go? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's a pretty stupid nitpick, but there's a lot of cases of these happening in the show. For example, the Earth is in front of the Sun and not burning in the episode Solar System Trials Part 3, which, by the way, he mentions his attempt of flying into the Sun. Also, they play solar cards, which there's an advertisement for it.
Saturn! Jupiter! Can you feel it, Saturn? Feel what?
New York has fallen.
It makes sense. Advertise like how you have like the Minecraft movie advertising McDonald's. However, in the Battle of Planet X Part 3, the challenge they play is with solar cards, which, why is no one questioning the fact that there's solar cards of them specifically? However, it's time to talk about my biggest issue with SolarBalls, that being the upload schedule. Now, in case you haven't noticed, most of these episodes are split into 3 parts. Back in the Moon Revolution arc, it wasn't too bad. Most episodes were just put in 1 part, and important episodes would be split in 2 parts. The only time they actually did this was in the final episode of Revolution, which they ended up splitting it into 4 different parts. However, these days, every single episode has to be split into 3 parts, which makes these episodes feel pretty incomplete, as most of the content feels like filler and having the plot progress, but in such a slow pace. I mean, there have been 13 videos to be posted on Thea arc in the span of 2 months, and yet I feel like nothing has actually happened, even though lots has happened, but because of how much little stuff actually happens in these plots, it puts that illusion that nothing is really happening. Now, am I saying that SolarBalls should combine all these 3 parts and upload weekly? No, absolutely not. Animation takes a long time, as the Imaginative Circus upload the last episode back in December 2024, or how both Lackadaisy and Catching Up perhaps only posted their pilot, with Catching Up's episode 2 taking around a year, and Lackadaisy's, which most likely will be releasing season 1 either in the summer or fall of this year, by having their pilot posted all the way back in 2023, or how Hasbin Hotel posting their pilot in 2019 didn't release season 1 until the beginning of 2024. Even shows like Skibbity Toilet, who are now posting 10-minute plus episodes, which by the way have no voice acting, which relieves a lot of the stress, come out every few months. However, there's one way to fix this problem without stressing the people working on the show out, and that being, instead of releasing 3 incomplete parts every week, you combine these 3 parts and post a full episode every month. Assuming that every part's 6 to 8 minutes long, excluding the sponsorship, SolarBalls could be releasing 18 to 24 minute episodes every month, which will not only still be faster than most indie animation shows, but also is a way to upload those episodes in an appropriate way. What about Patreon, you might be asking? Patreon is SolarBalls' main source of income, and one major reason they get their revenue is because they release episodes a week early. Well, I still think they should do that. An example is, let's say they release a full 18 to 24 minute episode, then either on the same day or the week after, release part 1 of the next episode, then part 2 the week after, and same with part 3. And then a week after they release part 3, release the next full episode. I'm pretty sure it would be a good way to keep your current Patreon supporters. Now, the only issue I could see with this is leaks. Now, during the Moon Revolution, when it was at its peak, SolarBalls had a massive leak problem, to the point where episodes had to be delayed because of how many leakers they were dealing with. People waiting for a week is already caused this much problems, but imagine people desperately trying to wait for a month, while also seeing parts of the new episode being released every week. This is probably one of the main reasons why they actually don't go with this method. And hey, if SolarBalls doesn't go with this method after I release this video, I completely understand that. It's just something I personally prefer, but I know not everyone's going to prefer it. At the end of the day, SolarBalls is still a great indie animation show, and they have a lot of potential, but there are still some things they have to work on. That's all for today's video. Please subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys later.